All right, let's dive right into it. Monster and magic items, two of my favorite things. And based on your notes, the Hexmasters Handbook looks like it's got them in spades.
It really does. And the possibilities they present are, well, monstrous.
No kidding. I mean, right from the get-go, that line in the Book of Eldritch Shadows about tech-based encounters really sets the tone, evoking the dread of the unknown, where the players tread with trepidation.
Oh, absolutely. That's classic Hexmaster right there, blending that fantasy with a dash of sci-fi horror.
Exactly. Though, speaking of dread, I'm starting to feel a little bit of it myself looking at the monster prices section. A Celestial Annihilator for 2,500 gold a week. That's a hefty sum.
It is. But think of it this way. Those prices are more like dot guidelines. They're a starting point for you to tailor to your own campaign.
You're right. It's not just about slapping down a price tag. It's about what that cost says about the world, about the power dynamics at play.
Precisely. This Annihilator, for example, maybe it's not something you just casually hire. Maybe it's a once-in-a-generation event, something that throws the entire world into chaos.
Now, that's an intriguing thought. It's not just a monster, it's a campaign-defining moment waiting to happen.
Exactly. Now, you sent over some notes about specific creatures that caught your eye, and I have to say, some of these are pretty wild.
Oh, yeah. There are some real doozies in here. The Quantum Phantasm, for example, is that thing even killable? Shifting between planes, phasing through attacks.
Right. It really makes you rethink your tactics, doesn't it? You can't just brute force your way through a fight with something like that.
No kidding. Players are going to have to get creative if they want to take that thing down.
And that's what I love about it. It forces everyone to think outside the box, both as players and as Hexmasters.
Exactly. Okay, but then there's this one, Kangaroo Bear. I'm sorry, did I read that right?
You did. And
Yeah.
yes, it's exactly what it sounds like. A kangaroo.bear.
I mean, you got to hand it to him. It's certainly creative.
Oh, absolutely. It's got that classic Hexmaster blend of absurd and awesome, and don't let the name fool you, it's surprisingly dangerous. That burrowing speed combined with its raw strength.
Yeah, I can imagine players underestimating that one to their detriment.
Definitely. And speaking of underestimating, we can't forget the Tesseract Transformer. Now, that's a creature that can really shake things up.
Talk about a campaign ender. I mean, we're talking about something that literally folds reality, right?
It's not messing around. It's got the potential to be a major, major player in your campaign. Maybe even the final boss.
Oh, now that's an intriguing idea. The party slowly uncovering the existence of this thing, this entity capable of warping the very fabric of their world.
It's giving me chills just thinking about it. The slow burn of uncovering that kind of cosmic horror. Classic Hexmaster.
Okay, so we've got reality-bending horrors, kangaroo bears. What else is on our list of strangeness?
Well, you mentioned being intrigued by the abyssal krill, and I have to say, I am too. They're small, but those bioluminescent properties.
Right, they're like little underwater fireflies. The atmosphere alone, imagine exploring a sunken city lit only by the glow of these things.
It's practically begging to be included in a campaign.
And that's what's so great about the Hexmasters Handbook, right? It's not just about stat blocks and mechanics. It's about sparking ideas, getting those creative juices flowing. And this is just the monsters.
And speaking of sparking ideas, you've also got a whole section on magic items marked up. We got to get to those.
Oh, absolutely. I'm ready to swap monster manuals for treasure chests. And that quote you pulled out about treasure being a boon or are a curse, that really sums up Hexmaster's approach, doesn't it?
It does. There's always that element of risk and reward, that sense that even the most tempting treasure might come with a hidden price.
Like the Shawl of Shrouding. Perfect for a stealthy rogue. But that name just screams, be careful what you wish for.
Right. It's practically begging for a curse to be attached to it. Maybe it amplifies the wearer's fears or slowly drains their life force.
Ooh, I like that. It becomes a plot hook in itself. Though not all cursed items have to be so dramatic. Sometimes it's the more subtle curses, the ones that creep up on you, that are the most fun.
Absolutely. It's that slow burn of dread, that creeping realization that something's not quite right that can really get under a player's skin.
For sure. Okay, shifting gears a bit. I'm also drawn to the items that seem mundane at first glance, but have these surprisingly magical twists, like the Skillet of Searing Heat.
Oh, that's a good one. It's like, what's for dinner? Oh, just some fire-forged veggies cooked in a skillet of pure magic. It's those little details that can really bring a world to life.
Absolutely. Okay, before we go off on a culinary tangent, let's talk about some of the more potent items you flagged, like the Chrono Arc Bow. The idea of paralyzing an enemy with a single arrow is pretty amazing.
It does sound powerful. But if there's one thing we know about Hexmaster, it's that there's always a catch.
Always. And in this case, it seems like that catch might be time itself.
Exactly. You've specifically mentioned the bow's interaction with the timeless trait. Are you thinking of introducing an antagonist with that trait?
Maybe. It's more like I've got this whole arc planned around the party, uncovering the existence of this ancient being who exists outside of the normal flow of time.
Oh, wow. And you're thinking the bow is a key element in that confrontation.
Exactly. Though now I'm wondering, does the timeless trait make the target immune to the bow's effects? Or does it amplify them, maybe trapping them in a moment of frozen time?
Those are great questions. It could go either way, and both options have the potential to really up the stakes.
Right. And then there's the question of what happens if they actually manage to defeat a timeless being? What happens to time itself?
Okay, now that's getting into some serious metaphysical territory.
I know, right? And speaking of potentially campaign-altering items, we have to talk about the Amulet of the Eternal Phoenix.
Ah, yes, the amulet that grants its wearer a second chance at life. One revivify per day. That changes things.
To say the least. Suddenly, death isn't this looming threat, it's more of a strategic inconvenience. How do you even begin to challenge players when they have access to that kind of power?
It really makes you rethink your approach to encounters, doesn't it? Do you try to hit them hard and fast, hoping to avoid triggering the amulet? Or plan for a war of attrition, knowing that death is only a temporary setback?
So many possibilities. And it's not just about the mechanics, right? It's about what this amulet says about the world, about the nature of life and death, about the lengths people will go to for power.
Exactly. It's a story generator in its own right. Okay, before we get too existential on everyone, there's one more item on your list that I have to ask about. The card of chance.
Hmm.
I mean, talk about unpredictable.
Right. It's like a wild card in item form.
Exactly. It could have any effect, from the beneficial to the utterly disastrous.
So basically, the perfect item for a Hexmaster who loves a little chaos.
You said it. It's true. We've only scratched the surface here. But that's the beauty of a resource like the Hexmasters Handbook. It sparks your own creativity.
It does. Like you said before, it's not about using every single thing in the book. It's about letting these ideas inspire you.
Exactly. You've already got some amazing ideas brewing. That whole thing with the chrono arc bow and your time-traveling villain.
Well, I have to give you credit there. It was your suggestion to really lean into the timeless aspect that got my brain going.
I love that.
Yeah.
It's like we're collaborating, even across time and through this deep dive.
And hopefully our listeners are feeling inspired to collaborate too. It's one thing to hear us talk about a kangaroo bear, but imagine how much fun they could have unleashing it in their own games.
Exactly. Will it be a terrifying new apex predator or just a really big nuisance who keeps stealing the party snacks?
See, that's what makes it so fun. Those little details, those choices, that's where the magic happens. And the Hexmaster's Handbook, it just gives you so many options to play with.
It really does. And I think that's what we've learned today. Whether it's monsters or magic items,
Yeah.
it's all about the story you tell with them.
Absolutely. Those moments of surprise, of wonder, of, oh my God, did that just happen? That's what makes tabletop gaming so special.
It really is. So to everyone listening, don't be afraid to embrace the chaos, the unexpected, the downright weirdness that makes Hexmaster what it is.
Couldn't agree more. Well, that about wraps up our deep dive for today.
Until next time.
Happy gaming, everyone.